If you want to support the platform, just in case anything like this happens again, you can do it by way of PayPal, Patreon, Cash App, and also by the Anchor. And you can also further support the platform by way of going to the Teespring store or the shoe store that is located in the comment section below.
Uh-huh.
And so
Really?
Nigerian
Wow.
household, it was just super. I went to an all predominantly white private school. I was supposed to be a national merit scholar. I ended up being 6'2", 240. I said, okay, we'll play football. But the beautiful part of Nigerian culture is I had to learn white culture because I was immersed in white culture. And then I got immersed in black culture playing in the NFL in college. And that's why I've realized the disconnect that currently exists in America. There's a color issue, but there's a culture issue. Let's address all of them.
Isn't that interesting that you learned about black culture as an adult playing football?
When white people say, well, racism doesn't exist, I know why they say that. Because I've been in them rooms when they saying that. When I kick it with black people and they're like, all white people are racist. I know why you're saying that. All the while, I have the privilege and luxury of not having generational trauma because my parents were born in Nigeria. So man, my method is removing some of the sting because I don't have that sting and trying to deliver a message in a manner that people can receive it.
All right, so let me just get this straight, right? We pretty much all heard and saw the exact same things, right? So you have somebody of Nigerian heritage, right? Two Nigerian parents who was, in a sense, brought or born directly over here, and he knew nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing about black culture. Why was that? Specifically because he was raised, as he stated before, predominantly around white people, more than likely living around predominantly white people. So, as he stated, he had to learn white culture. He had to be amongst them and basically understand because that's where he lived, that's where he ate, that's where he was getting his education, that's where he was, doing his jobs and everything in that nature. And then he said it wasn't up until he was an adult. Let me repeat that again. It wasn't up until he was an adult playing in the NFL that he learned about black culture and then had to start learning about and understanding black culture. And then you heard him in a secondary interview basically state, yet again, that society has a disconnect, that he understands and sees white culture because he's in the room and he understands why it is that white people perceive and see certain things the way that they see it. And there's a disconnect with the culture with black people as well because he's been in a room with them and heard them talk and different things of that nature. So I want people to understand how it is that he is saying that he is in the middle and how he is, in a sense, the best suited in order to have this conversation because he is not from either group. He might be a part of, but he is not born of any of the groups that are having these problems. So he is positioning himself in the middle and stating that he is a great mediator because he understands both cultures while not being from any of them. He can speak for black Americans even though he is not black American himself, even though he doesn't have that history, as he stated, that generational trauma, that sting. And because he doesn't have that sting, he's the one that can represent black Americans, speak for black Americans, and pretty much um, be a mediator and to start the healing process in between black people and white people in America. Excuse me. Excuse me. What are we doing here? How? I could never go over. I could never go over. Like I said, this is much love and respect to the African people. But I, as a black American, could never go over to your lands and try to insert myself politically in conversations that I have no background or history on. Understand what I'm saying? I never lived, right, as a Nigerian. I never went through any of the trauma. I never went through any of, let's say, if there were any civil wars or, local issues, governmental issues. I never went through any of those. So, in a sense, I would come over there with a clean slate. So, as somebody with a clean slate, I would sit there and just listen and I would work on understanding. The only time that I would open my mouth to speak on an issue is if the people of that land wanted me to speak on that issue. And even then, I'm going to walk a very tight line on what it is that I specifically state. Because me being Black American, I could come over there and potentially say something, but even though I'm there and I'm speaking because the people want me to speak and I'm speaking up for those people, trying to defend those people, I could still inadvertently, because I'm Black American, say something or state it in a certain type of way that will be offensive to those Nigerian people. Even though I may have good intentions, I still ended up saying something in a certain type of way that came across offensive. And that's clear cut what he did. That's clear cut what he did. And I like how Jimmy Kimmel, in a sense, gave some dry. I'm going to just look at it as that. Maybe he didn't, maybe it was subconscious, whatever it is. But it was just funny how Jimmy Kimmel decided to state, he was like, hey, isn't it interesting that you learned about Black American culture when you were an adult, right? Isn't that funny? Because you could look at it two ways, right? You could look at it as point A is like, oh, well, you understand us. This is where we are. Like, we didn't really understand it up until we really got out into the world, up until we really had Black friends, up until we were really around or living amongst, Black people, Black culture, stuff like that. Or you can look at it in the sense of, how is it possible that you didn't know anything about Black culture when it's literally in America? It's woven into the fabric. How is it possible that you, out of all people, did not know anything about Black American culture up until your adulthood when it's roughly around you, right? If you think about a lot of the people that, in a sense, listen to rap, it's not realistically just, hey, it's every single Black person listen to rap. No, you have a lot of white people that consume rap. A lot of white people. Like I said, go look at a lot of famous Black artists from past to present when they go overseas and they tour. I literally saw fields. It was like a sea of white people that knew the lyrics to DMX's song, word by word, bar for bar, not missing a beat, staying on rhythm. They knew as if it was a part of their being. So again, you could look at it two different ways. And for me, I feel as though that he's capping, because you're not going to tell me that on whatever college campus you're on, high school camp, you're not going to tell me that your white counterparts, the girls that you might have been seeing, talking to, messing around with, the guys that you were hanging around with, all Caucasian, all white, you're not going to tell me that they weren't listening to rap. You're not going to tell me that. You're not going to tell me that none of them on any high school level, on any college level, Even people that you might have worked with, you're not going to tell me that none of them listen to rap. It was the fact that more than likely you ignored it, because within a lot of these households of individuals that come from other places, they're taught to be them. They're taught that, in a sense, that Black Americans don't know how to act. They're not raised well. They don't have any type of morals. They're not appreciative. They're not respectful. They're not honest. They're in their households. They are taught that Black Americans are everything negative, and nothing positive. So more than likely, it comes down to the point that he ignored it. He ignored the Black culture. He ignored the Black music and all of these other types of things. But more than likely, he ignored it to an extent, because I promise you, the way that he was dressing, like I said, I didn't see him all his life, but I promise you, the way that he was dressing, he had some elements there. Because no matter where you go, even in college and high school, you're going to see a lot of like these white kids. They're going to have elements of how it is that Black people dress, act, and talk. But hey, it is what it is. This is the new, representation, the new mediator, I guess you could say.